Okay, so for the outside floor, you know, obviously paying attention to what you're gonna have at your doorway transition does matter. You obviously don't want to sliver, but most of the time, you know, especially if you're gonna do just a regular standard pattern, you know, using a full tile right up against the shower transition is really the best, you know, way to go in my opinion. So let's just go ahead and get the center of the room. So this is a 5-foot room, you know, basically 59 inches with the drywall. So that's center, and just take a look at it. I mean, you know that you're gonna basically be able to put that grout joint right on center and work fine. You're just gonna have like a 1/2 inch cut. So you're gonna be using this template just to butt your tile directly up to. So that's gonna be your straight edge for against the shower.
Well, that's weird.
No, it's not. It's 6 inch. I mean, it's, what is it, 5?
I didn't know it would do that.
5 3/4 inch. It's not really 6 inch. So yeah, it's pretty even. What I would do to just make this so that you have a direct line here. Now, I mean, I have a little bit more space on this side, so I'm just gonna move this slightly over right here so that it's hot glue this down.
Why are you gluing into the...
Oh my God. Okay, so now we got a straight edge. Now we can just butt this straight up against the shower pan and the wall. So let's just take a look at what this is gonna look like at the doorway. All right, so that's our layout. That's what we need to do. So we'll just go ahead and mix some Thinset, get that ready. Yeah, that'll be all right. I mean, we might have to get a piece of wood transition on the outside to make that look better, but yeah. All right, so for our Thinset, I just advise getting a decent Thinset for these smaller tiles. So something that's a high quality non-sag modified Thinset. So today we're gonna be using the Sika Tile 500 LHT. So this is a lightweight, but it's a non-sag Thinset. So make sure you mix the water ratio, so just about 6 quarts for that whole bag. And we're just gonna mix the entire bag because we'll probably end up needing a little bit more than that because that waffle definitely likes to fill up a lot of Thinset. So mix this thoroughly, mix it basically for a couple of minutes, let it sit for about 5, remix it before you start using it. It's a nice fluffy consistency. It's not really falling off my trowel all that much. So this is gonna be definitely a non-sag, probably gonna really benefit me on the walls, but also having something like this for a small tile, you know, you wanna have it like the consistency enough to where it's not too thick so that, you know, you can make sure that the tile is gonna bond. So now let's go ahead and check what kind of coverage is gonna be best for the tiles that we have here. Okay, so when it comes to determining what size trowel to use, you know, a lot of times it is kind of dictated by how thick the tile is. So this is a 1/4 inch thick tile. This is a 1/4 by 1/4 square notch trowel. So that evens up pretty nicely. That's gonna reduce the amount of Thinset coming up between. Now, just because this is a 1/4 doesn't mean that Thinset's not gonna come up through the joints. Just as if I were to move up to a bigger size trowel, like a 3/8 by 3/8, doesn't mean it's gonna come up through the joints either. Because you have to remember, when you're thin-setting something, these ridges are just to get a uniform amount of Thinset underneath the tile, but when you move the tiles back and forth, they collapse the ridges. So the 3/8 by 3/8 might actually be the better ticket for these 6 by 6 tiles, but we're gonna test it, see what's gonna work the best, and then basically use that size trowel for that. So first off, any one of these uncoupling membranes, you're gonna have to completely fill the waffle. I like using a grout float. You can use the backside of your trowel too as well, but just fill the entire waffle because this is basically what's interlocking the tile and Thinset together. So even if, you know, like if you ran the uncoupling membrane the night before and you had some leftover Thinset that you put down, you can actually do this and save money on the Thinset. Rather than throwing a half a bucket away, you can just fill it in the night before and it'd be ready to tile. So make sure that you fill the waffle in. Now we're gonna go ahead and test the 1/4 inch and the 3/8 by 3/8 trowel and see what's gonna be the better towel setting thickness for this. So that's the 1/4 by 1/4. That's the 3/8 by 3/8. So you can see that's definitely a lot more Thinset being applied there. And then I would recommend, back buttering all these tiles. I'm just a big believer of the back buttering aspect. It definitely bonds better, but let's go ahead and just set. So you basically move things around the collapsed ridges when you're setting these tiles. So every time that you're setting a tile, you're kind of moving it back and forth. But I'm just using the back side of the trowel just to back coat the tile. And let's just do, and on the 3/8, so moving this back and forth. Now let's go ahead and see which one has actually more coverage. So the 3/8 by 3/8, that's pretty damn nice. That's what you really want there. You can see how much Thinset that is. Completely suctioned off. There's no bare spot whatsoever. So that's pretty good. And then this is that's also good. 1/4 by 1/4. That's a great coverage right there. I mean, honestly, there's almost no difference. This obviously has more Thinset underneath of it, but this is a really good bond as well. So might as well go with the smaller amount of Thinset, just because, you know, it's more unlikely that you're going to get Thinset coming up through the joints with the smaller trowel. But since both of these are really good coverage, I feel fine with doing the 1/4 by 1/4. But you want to check this, because if you have thicker tile, if you have tile that's like has maybe a little bit of a cup to it, some of these tiles are handmade and has a vintage kind of thing to it. So it could be concaved a little bit, and then the Thinset's not like getting in the middle of it. So that's where you might want to move up to the 3/8 by 3/8 if you were seeing that. But this 1/4 by 1/4 is going to work tremendous. You're also going to save a little bit on Thinset too, because the less Thinset you're basically applying everywhere. Okay, so a couple things that you're going to want in addition to the tile. Now, a 6x6 tile really does not require a leveling system. They do make clips for something like this that can work out great. It really depends on the time-consuming aspect of doing that. In a lot of ways, I just don't find it completely necessary to do that with such small tiles on. As long as you get a nice even coat of Thinset underneath of it, you should be good shape. Now you're going to want some tile spacers. My favorite ones are these horseshoe spacers. These are 1/16 inch grout joints. That's what we're going to be going with. But these are really tremendous because you're able to insert them into the joint. You can use them very easily to get in and out, and then you can also reuse them, which is great as well. And then if you just wanted to double them up and get an 1/8 inch space somewhere, you can. But in addition to those spacers, I do highly recommend getting just a container of these wedges. So these little wedges go up to just about 1/8 of an inch. But these are precision wedges, and these just allow you to basically, in case, you know, not all tile is completely equally not every tile is going to be completely rectified and completely square. So sometimes you might need just a minor little adjustment to make things work properly, and that's where these little red spacers come in and are very handy. The other thing is just a simple little chip brush. This will help get Thinset out and underneath. Along with that, this is one of my favorite tiling tools. That's not a tiling tool, but a linoleum knife. So this is really helpful to scrape out the joints, kind of maneuver things. But since we already have basically our guide for our straight edge, straight down the middle of the floor, we have our template set for the shower. We can basically just run it straight up to this, and it's going to be a fairly straightforward installation. The only other thing I would recommend too for small tiles like this is using a level or a straight edge, just so that when you put these tiles together, you'll see me using this as we go, but you just want to make sure that all these tiles are all flat and even with each other. If anything's moving, is rocking a little bit, and you have any type of lippage, this is just nice to be able to reference any type of lippage and make sure that the tile is sitting down properly. So But other than that, I mean, this is a very simple, straightforward installation. It's just a matter of being patient and taking the time to set things. So let's go ahead and fill in our waffle first with our grout float. Use directional troweling, making sure that this is evenly coated. The more even your thin set layer, the better the evenness of the tile setting. And we're going to go ahead and back butter each piece of tile. So you just put one upside down and then one this way, and that'll ensure an even joint. So just feel the edges of the tile. And this is where that trip brush can't go out with that joint. This is where the straight edge kind of helps. This gives you a reference of how flat everything is. Kind of press everything down straight.
These just look more.
Looks like that tile was bigger or something. So I'm just going to use a small one here.
But yeah, I do like Ardex. Just to make sure that I have. That's true. And then use a little bit of liquid waterproof toilet bars, just doing taps. The landscape. No, thinking of issues people ask for. Social media, you know, and I thought it was going to be. I'm going to do that. You can fill that in later on. The reason I would do a Botanical. Why they would feel that way either.
All right, so one thing I've been guilty of is cutting tile in people's homes with a grinder because I don't want to walk all the way down the steps and actually cut the tile outside. So this is basically our water hose now, and has a little sprayer that's going to keep the dust down. So this what the hell? So just turn this.
issues you're gonna have here.
God. I'm sorry, this thing's a piece. I'm not doing it. Sorry, Hydrotail, that's just not, that doesn't make any sense. Can't have that much water going everywhere. All right, so we're going to be putting this toilet flange over top of the tile, so we don't have to be 100% accurate. Okay, just going to make sure that that fits in there. Okay, so we'll glue that in and we'll be screwing that down right through the tile. But for right now, just make sure that fits.